Welcome to Memorial Day 2020 at Sarasota National Cemetery, virtually. I'm Renee James Gilmore, and I have the pleasure of being the chairwoman of the Cemetery's Advisory Committee. We're here to work with other volunteers and the staff of Sarasota National Cemetery to make certain that no matter what, we are able to bring a ceremony to you that honors and remembers America's fallen military members. Thank you for joining us virtually, and find out more about Sarasota National Cemetery on our website.
I am honored that the Sarasota National Advisory Committee asked me to perform the national anthem for their virtual Memorial Day event.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
In 2020, Memorial Day ceremonies held at our national cemeteries are different. The coronavirus pandemic necessitates a safe measure of social distancing for everyone's protection, particularly neighbors and loved ones with underlying chronic conditions. What is the same this year is our dedication to remembering the ultimate sacrifice made by military service members who gave their lives for the liberties we enjoy. For our fallen military members, this federal holiday is no day at the beach. What is also the same in 2020? We're honoring our fallen as our nation has since 1868. Memorial Day began as Decoration Day shortly after the Civil War. The war between the states had pitted many families, neighbors, and friends against each other. And in the aftermath, our lands were strewn with the graves of Union and Confederate troops who had lost their lives. Major General John Logan, who was the commander-in-chief of the Grand Army of the Republic, ordered in 1868 the decoration of every grave with the choicest of flowers of springtime. General Logan wanted to honor all of the fallen and hoped to inspire healing for families suffering unfathomable loss. Adorning graves with flowers, flags, and wreaths has since been integral to honoring our fallen military members. After World War I, Decoration Day evolved into Memorial Day, honoring all men and women who died in wars for this nation. We must never forget the greatest cost of freedom.
We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no neglect, no ravages of time, testify to present or to coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of a free and undivided republic.
I am pausing for Memorial Day because freedom isn't free.
I'm pausing for Memorial Day because freedom is not free.
I'm pausing for Memorial Day because of their sacrifices.
I'm pausing for Memorial Day because freedom isn't free.
I pause for Memorial Day to remember the fallen and to honor this generation protecting us.
I'm pausing for Memorial Day because our freedom isn't free.
I pause for Memorial Day to remember the cost people have paid for our freedom.
Every day is Memorial Day for me, for the men I commanded and lost. They're buried all over this country and also in Europe too. And also I was a drill sergeant to send people off to war. And so every day is Memorial Day, and I'm so grateful to be part of this group that's putting on this tribute.
Hi, I'm Eli Dennard, and this is a poem I wrote for my grandfather. It is titled, "You Are Not Alone." As the American flag, I am created for an important role in the lives of the people of my country. Sometimes my job is happy, and sometimes it is hard. It is June 6th of 1970. 2 military soldiers silently fold me into a single blue triangle. I can see a woman weeping with a baby in her arms. Though a crowd stands around me, it is quiet here. Only the sound of taps plays in the distance. A warrior has died. I have covered his casket for 1,000 miles from the country of Vietnam. As I am given to the woman who is crying, a soldier says to her, "Presented to you from a grateful nation. I am home now. It is my honor to help her, to watch over her, and to remind her of the missing man that she loves. When you see me flying over buildings or standing watch over schoolyards and homes, remember, I am more than a symbol. I am grief, I am gratitude, and I am comfort. I carry with me the whisper of generations who have gone before. I am the American flag, and you are not alone."
Some say children are the most poignant reasons for teaching the true meaning of Memorial Day. The military pursuits that nurture our free democracy and civil society are made possible by those wearing American uniforms. Some gave all for the rest of us. That is why we pause this day to remember their ultimate sacrifice. This is why we teach the children, and why some children teach us, that it is inappropriate to say, "Happy Memorial Day." The fallen sons, daughters, sisters, brothers, cousins, nieces, and nephews who will never know grandchildren, know that they were loved.
I come from a military family. My great-grandfather served in World War I, and my grandfather served in World War II. But my family made the ultimate sacrifice for our country when my Uncle Hugh was killed in Vietnam. He was 20 and one of 5 children. My mom, his sister, was just starting out in life, and the loss was so painful that we never really talked about Hugh or the profound effect losing him had on her or our family. Until last Memorial Day, when my mom and I attended the ceremony at Sarasota National Cemetery. At the end of the service, they asked all Gold Star families to rise. We stood. It was the first time my mom had publicly recognized the sacrifice our family made for the love of our country. So this Memorial Day, my heart goes out to all the families who lost loved ones in service to our country. Thank you for your sacrifice. We honor you.
Hi girls, I want to thank you for being with us here today. My name's Miss Misha, as you well know, and I wanted to explain to you why we're here today and what we do and how we do it. Every year we're here on the Saturday before Memorial Day to place an American flag at every gravesite here. Do you know why we do that? To remember those that we love. And I know that you have someone special here. Know that the last 5 years, he's always had a flag. We've had a volunteer place one. So today, I'd like for you to to take the instruction and learn how we place it so that you can carry this forward in the future and be able to place your father's flag, okay? So I will demonstrate. This is a paint stick, but it's 12 inches. So we kneel down. We place the paint stick in the center of the headstone. Okay. We take the screwdriver and push it down in the ground. Pull it up. Place the flag. Pause. Seidel Steiner, thank you for your sacrifice.
Thank you for your service.
Hello, welcome to our 2020 Memorial Day tribute. My name is Edward Lyons, and I have the honor of serving as the Assistant Director here at Sarasota National Cemetery. I come from a proud military family, myself being a Marine Corps combat veteran of the war in Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom. In the National Cemetery, we often say that no veteran ever dies. Why? This is because some believe that no one is ever truly gone until their name is spoken for the last time. Here, in this most sacred garden of stone, we erect lasting monuments, each inscribed with the name of a veteran who has been laid to rest or to be memorialized. We maintain them in perpetuity, ensuring that they go unforgotten and that their sacrifice is always honored. So please, when visiting a national cemetery, look around you, read the names on these monuments, and take the time to say them out loud. As a veteran who has been downrange, where the metal meets the meat, and was fortunate enough to come home, every day is Memorial Day. Every day is a chance to honor that selfless sacrifice so that we may keep and enjoy our freedoms. Anyone who has had close friends or family that paid the ultimate sacrifice upon the altar of freedom knows this to be true. As a cemeterian, I am working every day with the staff and volunteers here at Sarasota National Cemetery to uphold our sacred trust of caring for him who shall have borne the battle. This National Day of Remembrance affords us the opportunity to pause for a moment and remember those who gave all for the freedoms that we cherish. They were husbands and wives, they were fathers and mothers, they were sons and daughters, they were our friends and neighbors, and some were even strangers. It is at this time that I would like to invite you into my heart and take a moment with me as I speak aloud the names of the men who I had the honor to serve alongside and the privilege to walk with, who unfortunately did not come home as I did. Lance Corporal Michael Freeman.
Private First Class Jason Estopinal, Lance Corporal Garrett Gamble, Gunnery Sergeant Christopher Eckert, I would like to thank you for taking the time to pause today as we remember those ardent patriots who gave their lives in defense of this country, and joining us as we spoke out some of their names out loud. On Memorial Day, call out their name.
I'm Mona Gunn, National President for American Gold Star Mothers, and on behalf of all the members of the organization, I'm happy to bring remarks for Sarasota National Cemetery Memorial Day tribute. Memorial Day, the fourth Monday in May, is set aside to honor those who died while serving in the armed forces. American Gold Star Mothers was founded in 1928 by Grace Darling Seabold, whose son chose to serve our country, and he went away to fight in World War I. He left his mom in 1917, and a year later, he was killed. While he was there, fighting and flying planes, there was an Army surgeon, Colonel McCrae, who took care of the wounded World War I veterans, and he was struck by the sight of these red flowers in the fields. He wrote a poem in Flanders Field for the cluster of poppies that grew over the fields where the soldiers were buried. And Americans now typically wear a poppy as a symbol of remembrance for Memorial Day. In December 2000, following the attack on the USS Cole, where my son was killed, the White House Commission on Remembrance was established by Congress to promote the values of Memorial Day with acts of remembrance throughout the year. Congress then called on the people of the United States to observe a moment of silence at 3:00 p.m. their local time to remember and honor those who have died in service to our nation. This is known as the National Moment of Remembrance. In closing, I ask you to take some action on Memorial Day this year and do 3 things. Decorate the graves of the fallen with flowers, like the women in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Wear a red poppy to remember those who sacrificed their lives fighting for our freedom. And pause at 3:00 p.m. for a minute to remember and honor all those who died in service to our country.
Music and musicians play an important role in military life. Music inspires troops to action. It accompanies when they're dressed in their best. The familiar sound of taps is heard when troops are laid for their peaceful and final rest. According to a taps historian at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the origins of taps is somewhat clouded in controversy and myth. But this is what we understand. This bugle call was composed in 1862 after taking notes from an old Army infantry signal to extinguish lights. During the Civil War, Major General Daniel Adams Butterfield thought the regulation music of that time was too formal. So with the help of his brigade's bugler, he created taps to honor the men who had met their end. He reached back to the bugle call tattoo, which was once a common alert to troops to prepare for the evening roll call. The last 5.5 measures of tattoo were incorporated into the 24 notes we now know today. Troops thought the new lights out call was calming and melodic, and taps quickly spread to other units.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. This is different. I want to share some items that I've brought from my china cabinet at home. They're small, but they're significant to me, and they help tell a story about my son, U.S. Army Specialist Stephen Taylor Hayes. On Thanksgiving Day 2008, our son Taylor surprised me. I was cooking Thanksgiving dinner, and he announced that he was going to join the Army. My apron came off, and we had to sit down. And in a very few minutes, my husband and I realized that he was resolute in his decision. He wanted to serve for all the right reasons, and so we were in full support. And in his full speed ahead way of doing things that he had done his whole entire life, Taylor enlisted that Monday as soon as the recruiter's office was opened. He completed infantry and airborne training. He married his high school sweetheart. And in a very few short months after he enlisted, he was deployed to a combat zone in Afghanistan. Before he left, though, our church got together and some special people really contributed some neat things. One of the things that they gave our family was this Blue Star banner. Back in World War I, it became customary for a family who had a service member who was on active duty. They would display this banner in their window. So this is actually the banner that we hung in our window when Taylor deployed to Afghanistan. Before he left, a gentleman named Don, who was a Navy veteran, gave Taylor something really precious, and it's this little New Testament. The date on the inside is 1917. Don's uncle, Calvin, had carried this in France, and Don carried it, his full deployment, in Guantanamo, Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He gave this little New Testament to Taylor, who carried it every single day on every single mission in Afghanistan. It was like Taylor was carrying not only Don and not only Calvin with him, but his grandfather, my father, who had served in Korea with the United States Marine Corps, and Taylor's other grandfather, who had served in the Navy in World War II. The very following Thanksgiving 2009 was very different. That Blue Star banner was hanging in our window. There was an empty seat around our table. And on Thanksgiving weekend, we actually received one of 2 phone calls that Taylor would give us from Afghanistan. That call was that he had been involved in an explosion. A suicide bomber had a 1,000-pound truck bomb attack my son's forward operating base. Taylor had been asleep in his bunk. He had been up all night on night shift, asleep, and was blown out of his bed across a room. A few months after the explosion, Taylor was on a mission in the mountains in Afghanistan. We got a letter from him, one of a few letters that we received. And here's what he wrote. He said, "Hey, I was on patrol. I saw these 2 rocks, and it made me miss home. It's weird, I know, but if you think about it, it's really not. I just wanted to skip these rocks in water so bad, but of course there's none here. So Dad and Graham, can you please skip them across a pond for me? Thanks. And don't worry about me. The Taliban over here are," I'm not going to tell you what he said. "They don't do anything. Love you guys. Thanks for all the packages. You guys are awesome." Needless to say, Mom intercepted the rocks and they did not get skipped, and they were treasures to me then, and they're treasures to me now. Taylor completed his deployment. We had the privilege of being able to greet him when he returned home to Fort Bragg, and it was better than any movie set you've ever seen. We had that little 6-month-old Tori waiting to meet her dad. She hadn't seen him since the short time that he was able to come home for her birth. As he walked out of that airplane hangar, Taylor said something that for our family has become really a signature phrase. He took a big deep breath in and he said, "The air smells so clean, I call it freedom air." Later that night, we were gathered around a table and just welcoming him home, so happy that he was returned to us. And he looked at my husband in a private moment and he said, "Dad, I feel old." And he had just turned 20. A few months after that, Taylor, who was a paratrooper, was in a parachute landing accident. That jump incident combined with the explosion that he had been involved in Afghanistan really created kind of a perfect storm with his with PTSD. He loved his little girls with his whole soul. He loved his wife, he loved his family, he loved serving. He had 2 little rocks that were with him when he died that his girls had made him on Father's Day. They have their names on them and they simply say, "My dad rocks." They were his treasures, and like those other rocks, now they're ours. When a service member dies, either during or as a result of their service, that is what defines a Gold Star family. And the Blue Star banner that we had hung in our window was changed to a Gold Star banner. The gold is superimposed on the blue, signifying a service member who was lost in service to their country. For all Gold Star families like our family, we don't just observe Memorial Day once a year or on a weekend. Memorial Day is every day. On most Memorial Day observances, there's a name reading of fallen who have given the ultimate sacrifice for their country. One of the things that's important to me is for you to understand that although you hear the names and we appreciate the names, they're not just two-dimensional figures. These were people. They had lives, they had dreams, they had idiosyncrasies, they had things that probably their moms got onto them for. And Taylor was no different, my son. But I want to read you a letter that he wrote actually when he was in boot camp. I think it really conveys the mindset of our men and women who sign on that dotted line and the mindset and the heart behind those who have given their lives. Taylor had the opportunity to go to an air show during boot camp, and he was excited to be off the base. He said, "Today was pretty much awesome. We got to go to this air show with civilians and everything, and some cool things happened that gave me chills and pride that I want to share with y'all." There were 3 things. First, we pulled up on buses, and when we unloaded off the buses and started walking toward the gates, there was this crowd of people cheering and clapping and taking pictures and welcoming us, and it was awesome. We didn't even do anything. Second, there were a bunch of planes doing tricks, and a guy parachuted out of a biplane with an American flag flowing behind him in the air, and for the first time, I got to drop everything and render a salute in public. I thought that was really neat during the national anthem. Third, on our way home riding the buses, there were hundreds of people lining the highway, waving and clapping and giving a thumbs up as we drove past. The moms did just like the movies. They picked up the little kids' hands and waved for them. Just little things like that remind you why we do what we do, and that it is completely an honor to serve this glorious country. I just thought I'd share, but I need to get to sleep, so I'll write soon. Thank you for all the comics. The guys love them. Tell Nana and Papa thanks for the letters. I love you guys. Night, everyone. The family soldier, Taylor. It's that heart and that mindset that our service members have. It's what we honor today. Before you go on about your Memorial Day observance, would you select a name, at least one? Maybe find out a little bit about that person and say their name out loud. It's those kind of things that give us as Gold Star families comfort that you won't forget. God bless.
Yeah, my name is Craig Gross, and this is my wife, Tony, and we are the proud Gold Star parents of Corporal Frank Robert Gross, who was KIA 16 July 2011 in Kandahar, Afghanistan. He came home one day and he kind of shocked me, and Tony, and he said, "Look, I'm joining the Army."
His life scripture was taken from Colossians 3:23, and it was, "Whatever you do, do it with all your heart as unto the Lord." And he lived by that scripture, and that scripture verse is written upon his grave in Arlington.
I wear this every day. I don't go anywhere without it. The Gold Star pin, it's, as many people know who are Gold Star parents, it's a pin that we're proud to wear, but we many times wish we didn't have to wear. It really opens up a great opportunity to share about who our son was, and then also remind people that the freedom that they have is not free. I find it amazing that sometimes I'll say to somebody, they'll say, "Oh, what is that pin for?" And I'll say, "Well, I'm a Gold Star dad." And they'll go, "Oh, well, congratulations, that's wonderful." They don't really know what it means. But Tony and I, our mission has been to educate people as to what Gold Star families are. So that's really one of the reasons why I wear it every day, more than anything else, to make people aware of what a Gold Star family is.
Say their names. That's something that is so important to all Gold Star mothers and families and siblings, everyone connected to service-related deaths. Saying their names keeps them alive. Tommy died with 11 of his brothers, and saying each of their names helps me feel closer to his brothers, helps me feel closer to him. I feel closer to other Gold Star mothers and Gold Star families when we say their names.
My parents were only married for 3 years, and they only were able to live together 6 months out of those 3 years. And he drew on a napkin a house that he wanted to build when he came back. After breakfast, he kissed her goodbye, and he left. She never saw him again. But I was born 9 months later. I was 8 months old, and my mother got the word that he had died in May of 1945, right at the very end of the war. My new husband thought that I needed to go see my father's grave. Wow. So he took me to Paris first, Amsterdam and Paris, and then we took the high-speed train. And I was crying the whole way because it was so powerful, so emotional. And what they do is they take an American flag and they stick it in the ground right next to your soldier's grave. And they take the sand. You really can't see because they're white. So they take the wet sand and they cover it with the wet sand, and then they wipe it off so that when you take a picture, you're able to see that is the grave of Franklin Nelson, Lieutenant. So I said to my husband, I said to Lou, "Oh my God, honey, this is the closest I've ever been to my father." He's that unknown person that's in our blood. He lives on.
My brother was Charlie Brown, and he was in the Army in 1948 for 2 years. Sent them to Korea, and turned out that's where he died. 60 years or so later, they found his remains. We had him brought back to Sarasota, where he's buried in Sarasota National Cemetery. And at the airport, and I said, when they brought him off, then they said the family, can come out. And that's when it really hit me. And realizing that this was a brother that I really never knew. Like I say, I was only 7 when he went out to the casket, and I leaned over and kissed the casket, and everything just broke loose then. But,
Yeah.
you know, you realize, you know, it's like losing any person that you really care about. This was a blood relative, you know.
Mark was a 3rd-generation Marine. He joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, just like I did, and my father did, and my uncle did. The family joke is that Mark's first word before he ever said Mama, he said Marine Corps. Graduation, in the distance, you hear this chant, and it gets louder and louder, and you can start to hear the pound of the sound of their feet on the ground. And they run in unison in platoon after platoon across the parade ground. That was my first sight of Mark as a Marine, and I'll never forget it. I was so proud, and as long as people continue to tell Mark's story and they continue to share his joy and his craziness and his wild antics, because there were a lot of those, he continues to live on.
My name is Staff Sergeant Barbara Wade, and I am the Gold Star mother of Staff Sergeant Maurice O'Brien Tucker. I've been in the United States Army for 30 years, retired. My son Maurice Tucker spent 6 years in the United States Army. You know, when a military member, from my perspective, puts on that uniform, they put on that uniform knowing that you may not return. No matter what type of duty you're doing or where you're deployed to, you may not return. But we put that uniform on to represent our country. Even though Maurice passed away, I get my strength from God. And one of the things that I carry with me always is God gave him to me for a little while. And so I know that I will see Maurice on the other side someday. And I keep his spirit, joy in my heart. And that's what keeps me going from day to day.
I grew up in the Philippines around the U.S. Naval and Marine base. He think other people first before him. He always think about his family and just how he could serve. If Andrew would say something right now, he probably he wanted to give me a hug and talk to me for a long time and spend time with me.
And he just felt like it was his duty. He was in hopes that if he went as a single man, that some of his married friends with children wouldn't have to go. And that's just the kind of guy he was. Memorial Day is so special. It's just such an honor to all the people that have died serving our country or as a result of serving our country. It's just an appreciation of, the people who laid down their lives and were willing to do that.
No one wants to be the family that gets to knock on the door, but we all know it's possible. So the best thing that we can do for our military that have given their all in service to our great nation is to pause, take a moment to remember their sacrifice. I just think it's very important that we recognize there is a difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And Memorial Day is not a time of celebration, it's a time of remembrance, it's a time of commemoration. And I'm not saying that people should just go around all day being all humdrum. What I am asking is that everyone would take a moment out of their day in the morning and remember those who've given their all. And then in the afternoon, go enjoy family time.
When she passed, I knew that's what she wanted because she fought for it. She wanted it, she knew what she wanted, and she worked her butt off to get it. And, you know, we were proud of her. I was still very worried about the possibility of what could happen and what could transpire. But I was happy that she was doing something that she was so adamant about doing, so insistent on being a part of. And, you know, that made me proud as a sister. That made me proud when someone asked me, you know, what does your sister do? I'm like, she's in the Army. My sister's in the Army, and this is what she wanted to do. Even with the outcome and the hurt and the fallout for everyone in the family, this is what she wanted to do. And I guess in some sense you can find some solace in it, that she died doing what it was that she was meant to do, knowing that this could be the outcome, but she was just like, she was ready for it and she was game.
I received this pin December 3rd, 2002 in Fort Hood, Texas, where Buck had passed away after being on life support for 2 days and from an accident. And we made the decision to suspend life support with his whole family around him and loving people and his commanding officers. And we were be able to be with him during that most beloved time. And it was my thought that if I brought him into this world, that I was going to be with him when he went out. There's a difference between those holidays known as Veterans Day, Memorial Day, Flag Day. And Memorial Day is a solemn day. Memorial Day, as a child, I used to watch the parade go by and these women dressed in white and wonder why. And then it was explained to me what that meant. Now I am one. Really brings home the respect and the honor that trickles down to every local cemetery and every family that has had a veteran or active duty military loss. And it's our time where we can show our appreciation for our heroes, and that's the most important thing.
So he had dreams. He told me, Mom, I need to go back because I have a wedding to go to. He had dreams to have a family, to take care of me, his family. So he had dreams to be a police officer, to serve his communities. And he had dreams to be the best he could be. I give all my dreams so you can have yours. And honoring not just him, but honoring all of our sons and daughters, all those who sacrifice their lives, and all those in duty now, that their families and themselves sacrifice their dreams so we can be safe, so we can have the dreams that they can have.
I realized he was 19 when he died. He was 17 when he left home. He was just gung-ho, nothing's going to happen to him. I'll be home, Mom, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. But that's the way we left it. I've always said, if I was there, I would tell him, Bruce, that's dangerous, don't do that. Of course, Mother wasn't there to tell him that, and he did what was in his heart, and he saved his men. And I hear from them to this day, some of them, there's no price for freedom. You can't buy it, you can't sell it. You can't get on your knees and beg for it. You have to earn it.
The history of military prayer has a constant thread. Since 1791, military chaplains have nurtured the living, cared for the dying, and honored the dead. May their prayers help ease the pain of the informed when they hear the word happy preceding Memorial Day. John Adams, who led the military committee that drew up the first two principles of the American military, included exemplary conduct and daily prayer. Commanders in the 13 United Colonies were ordered to take great care that divine services were performed twice a day aboard ship and a sermon preached on Sundays. Later, during the horrific days of World War II, the phrase necessary equipment was started by General Marshall to include religious readings and symbols. This military necessity is considered as important as ammunition, weapons, chow water, good order, and discipline.
May we pray. Heavenly Father, we invite you to join us here today and rejoice in your presence. In the quiet sanctuaries of our own hearts, may we lift up to you our loved ones who have died, whose hearts and hopes are known to you alone. These hallowed grounds are guarded by gardens of stone, where they still stand the watch as marble sentries. They have defended our nation and have passed in review unto their eternal resting place. Remembering them is only half the task. We must carry their love, honor, and duty forward to the future generations. Our children must know who they were, what they did, and why they did it. To do anything less would be a disservice to their sacrifice. Father, help us to shape and make a world where we lay down the arms of war and cultivate a harvest of justice and peace. We recognize each generation for their sacrifices to protect the freedoms we enjoy. This current generation is no exception. They are our nation's finest and are standing watch to keep evil at bay. As we gather to honor and remember today, may our thoughts and words be seasoned with your grace. Hear our prayer this day, and your mercy answer us in the name of all that is holy. Amen. Now remember the fallen. Seaman Andrew John Adams, United States Navy. Sergeant Holly Rose Belinsky, United States Army. Captain William Anderson Branch, United States Army. Specialist Christopher Scott Brockway, United States Army. Master Sergeant Charles J. Brown, Jr., United States Army. Specialist Austin Isaiah Caratelli, United States Army. Petty Officer First Class Jonathan R. Clement, United States Navy. Sergeant John M. Conant, United States Army. First Lieutenant Salvatore S. Corma, United States Army. Sergeant Robert Louis Cruz, United States Army. Lance Corporal James B. Cunningham, United States Marine Corps. Private First Class Paul Orazio Kazupi II, United States Army. Senior Airman Jonathan L. Dahan, United States Air Force. Corporal Kevin John Jack Dempsey, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Patrick R. Dolphin, United States Marine Corps. Chief Warrant Officer Scott W. Dyer, United States Army. Captain Daniel William Eggers, United States Army. Sergeant Daniel Frazier, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Sean Robert Green, United States Army. Corporal Frank R. Gross, United States Army. Signalman Seaman Sharon L. Gunn, United States Navy. Staff Sergeant Joshua R. Hager, United States Army. Petty Officer Third Class Michael Halpert, United States Navy. Sergeant Julian Harris, United States Army. Specialist Stephen Taylor Hayes, United States Army. Specialist Richard Buckingham Buck Hubble III, United States Army. Corporal Barton Russell Hummelhans, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Brandon Islip, United States Army. Corporal Thomas Joseph Jardis, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant John James Cleaver, United States Army. Sergeant Zachariah William Kosis, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Spencer Colheim, United States Army. Specialist Corey Joseph Kowal, United States Army. Corporal Dale J. Cridlow, United States Army. Specialist Patrick Lay II, United States Army. Private First Class Joanne Elizabeth Libby, United States Army. Sergeant Terry M. Lisk, United States Army. First Lieutenant Travis L. Mannion, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer Second Class Jason S. Jake Maletsky, United States Coast Guard. First Lieutenant Franklin A. Nelson, United States Army. Specialist Christopher M. North, United States Army. Specialist Nicholas C. Panapinto, United States Army. Sergeant Linda Lamore Pierre, United States Army. Lance Corporal Mark Leland Plotz, United States Marine Corps. Senior Airman Joshua Allen Reinwasser, United States Air Force. Hospital Corpsman Third Class Edward Troy Reynolds, United States Navy. Lance Corporal Austin James Ruiz, United States Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Anthony John Salerno, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Mark Anthony Shaldo, United States Army. Sergeant Dylan J. Semolina, United States Marine Corps. Private First Class Austin Noah Stump, United States Army. Seaman Brandon Thurber, United States Navy. Staff Sergeant Maurice O'Brien Tucker, United States Army. Sergeant Jacob Lee Van Dyne, United States Army. Private First Class Alfred David Vaccarano, United States Army. Private First Class Bruce Wayne Carter, United States Marine Corps, Medal of Honor.